What are some realistic free agent options for the San Jose Sharks this upcoming offseason? We're going to dive into some players on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor to San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly a part of the Locked On Network where we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you got to do, just come back on Monday as we continue to pump out 5 episodes a week. Plenty of draft profiles coming, some more. Kind of continue to dig into some potential additions for the Sharks this offseason. But today we're going, like I said, we're going to be looking at 4 free agents, mostly in forwards and 1 goalie who could be real legitimate, considerations for Mike Grier as he continues to try to retool the San Jose Sharks team. So before we get into the first free agent, kind of set the table of where the Sharks kind of stand as they're going to be heading into free agency here in less than a month, 1 month from today, or less than a month. Yeah, whatever. Time is hard. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you guys by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, as a nice little reminder of where the Sharks kind of currently sit heading into this offseason, how much cap space they have, kind of the big free agents, all that fun stuff. The main thing is the big kind of takeaway is they actually got a little bit of money to play with. So they currently have $14 million in cap space with 17 players on their roster. That includes Bordalo not being on the roster, William Eklund currently being on the roster. But again, they're big free agents. They don't really have like any big ticket free agents that they need to sign either this offseason or the following offseason. Like the Sharks are, if you look into the 24-25 season, the Sharks have some money to play with. Granted, they're fielding a team of 9 players, but they're going to have some money to play with. So, looking at this offseason for the Sharks, like this feels like the first offseason a little bit where they can kind of open up the purse strings a little bit. I don't expect that to be Mike Grier just to go out and just, blow all his budget here. But, for the Sharks, like the only kind of their biggest projected contract, at least for their RFA guys, is Fabian Zetterlund, who's projected to make, from Evolving Hockey, he's projected to make a $1.65 million a season over the next 2 years. So basically, that's their biggest contract that they're expected to give out. So a little over $3 million for Fabian Zetterlund for the next 2 years. That's not too bad. Like the Sharks you're starting to see, the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the cap crunch here for San Jose. And if this is projecting with the cap only going up $1 million this year, and who knows what happens if we get to see an increase, but they're going to have some money to spend. And if they do want to spend some money, I kind of looked at 3 forwards and a goalie. There's still there's a kind of a log jam in the defense. A lot of those guys are still, basically all their defenders are still under contract for the foreseeable future. So there's not going to be, I don't think there's going to be much spending unless Erik Karlsson is gone. But I think they're going to focus on trying to kind of revamp this forward group and continue to revamp this forward group. So looking for guys who can either kind of hold down the fort now, or at least be pieces that could continue, to hopefully age a little well. So the first guy is one Tyler Bertuzzi. So he will be 28 at the start of next season. Didn't have the greatest season for Detroit / Boston. In 50 games, only scored 8 goals, 22 assists, had 107 shots on goal. Average time on ice was 16:29. Corsi for was 52.65. Goals for was 49.25. So basically, when he was on the ice, his team was out shooting the other team, but they were giving up a slightly more goals than they were scoring goals. So Bertuzzi, again, got traded at the trade deadline to Boston, but the goals just weren't really there this year for Bertuzzi, and which is kind of interesting, scoring 8, especially after the previous year where he scored 30 goals. So the 21-22 season, he had 30 goals, follows it up with 8 this year. So I feel like this is a potential, I don't want to say buy low, but I don't think the Bertuzzi we saw last year is the Bertuzzi that we're kind of used to seeing. Looking at his stats from last year, 55th percentile player, 68th percentile offense, 23rd percentile defensively. Really is going to help your team's power play, which the Sharks' power play could use some more bodies. And don't expect anything from him on the penalty kill. That's fine. I feel like with Bertuzzi, you kind of know what you're getting. He's going to be kind of a big bruising power forward type of guy that's really kind of feels like he fits the Mike Grier MO, right? Last season, I think was up and down. I think he kind of struggled with some injuries, but if you look at that 21-22 season, he was a 90th percentile player, 85 percentile offensively, 50 percentile defensively. I think he was producing offense. He just wasn't hitting the back of the net. It's almost the Noah Gregor thing. But again, he literally was the 30-goal scorer 2 years ago. And I feel like the Sharks could potentially be could be a great asset to the Sharks. Like, especially if you want to play him kind of, if you want to play him in your top 6, you could put him with Couture, Barabanov, Bertuzzi. That feels very fun to me. You could put him, kind of give Hurdle another running partner. Maybe you go a Hurdle, Eklund, Bertuzzi line, like kind of give some diversity. You have 2 big guys in Bertuzzi and Hurdle, and then Eklund, you can kind of be a bit of a more playmaker there. So, I know Bertuzzi has struggled with staying healthy at times, especially with coming, in the past couple seasons. Again, he only played 50 games last year. The season before that, he played 68 games. He missed basically most of the 2020 season. He only played 9 games in there. The most amount of games he's played 73 in a season is 73. So he does feel like he does kind of deal with some injuries here and there. And he has seen his ice time really kind of drop, especially last year where, previous years he was floating around 19 to almost 20 minutes. Last year he was at 16:30. So whatever it was with Detroit, and then on Boston, of course, he was with how stacked their top 6 was, kind of more of a third line role for him on a very good team that lost in the first round. But I feel like he could be a potential. You add him to San Jose, he's going to earn a bunch of kind of power play 1 minutes. He's going to play top 6 minutes for the Sharks easily. And I think he could produce for San Jose and kind of help fill that Timo Meier role a little bit as well. So contract. So he is out of all the guys I looked at, he's the most expensive. So Evolving Hockey has him with they're predicting him to sign a 4-year deal at a little over $5.5 million going into $5.5 million. So that, again, if you're getting like 80% of Timo Meier at half the pay, right, type of situation. Again, I know he's 28, and that would, if you sign him to a 4-year deal, that puts him to his age 32 season. Like, perfectly fine with that type of situation. If you want to look at, so he's at 35% chance to sign a 4-year deal, 35% chance, or 32%, excuse me, to sign a 5-year deal. That would push him up over the $6 million. That's a little rich for my blood. If you could sign him under $6 million for 4 years, I feel like that's a nice kind of situation for the Sharks to be in, where they can add a player who can help them now, and that you have some talent as you start to kind of add some of these younger pieces like your Bordelos, your Eklunds, and not just asking these guys to go out there and do it all. So Bertuzzi at like a little over $5.5 million for the next 4 years feels like a solid deal for both parties. So before I look at some of the other guys, James van Riemsdyk, who's older, Pius Suter, look at a potential goalie, do need to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at Game Time. If you are trying to score tickets for anything, maybe you've got all the money in the world and you want to go to an NBA Finals game or one of the NHL Finals games, you want to go to Vegas to watch go Vamos Gatos and watch Vegas fans be sad, hopefully. Game Time is the place where it's at, because you can buy tickets to your favorite events and it's not stressful. They have fast and easy deals to buy tickets to all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They have killer deals on last-minute tickets with their best price guarantee, so you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. My favorite thing is they have images of the seats, right? There's nothing worse than buying tickets and you get there and you realize you have terrible seats. Game Time, every seat you can see where you're going to sit and see what your view is going to look like. It's the fastest growing ticket app in the country for a reason. You get your tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. And they get sent directly to your phones. You don't have to go digging through your email, especially if you have like a bunch of emails. Maybe you have that like kind of spam account email where you just sign up for things on that one. You don't have to worry about trying to dig through that stuff. They send it directly to your phone. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, so next guy on the list, a little bit older, but I feel like this is one of those where you kind of sign and just kind of play it by ear with him. So one James van Riemsdyk. So he is a 34-year-old. Sorry, I'm trying to get all my stuff together on YouTube. He'll be 34 next year. I know, a little bit older there. Last season in 61 games, had 12 goals, 17 assists, 119 shots on goal. Average ice time was 15:21. Corsi 4, 50.79 was actually the best among qualifying Flyers. He's still driving play. Goals for 52.31. So again, when James van Riemsdyk was on the ice, his team was outscoring the other team. Good things to see. That Flyers team, we know, hot mess. Not that the Sharks have any room to talk about, but et cetera, et cetera. His underlying numbers, not super pretty. So kind of around ice time was around a second line forward, which is kind of where you want, I think, him to be on the Sharks. 36th percentile overall player, 55th percentile offense, 17th percentile defensively. Did a lot of things expected goals wise, like he's producing, you're just not seeing the results. Like his goals above replacement, both on even strength and on power play, not kind of what you want to see, but he's doing positive things and just wasn't really getting rewarded for those this season. So no, this isn't just my Flyers love of James van Riemsdyk and why, I'm trying to get more ex-Flyers on the Sharks. But I feel like Van Riemsdyk is a solid gamble where if you sign him to a 1-year deal, so his projected contract is a 1 year at $1.7 million. So basically, like, you're getting a guy who can be under $2 million for you for a year. And it gives you a little bit of flexibility. So if he doesn't work out, cool. You're not locked in for long term, but I feel like there might be some gas left in the tank for Van Riemsdyk, especially when it comes into the goal scoring department, right? Last year scored 12 goals in 61 games. The year before that had 24 goals in 82 games. In the bubble season had 17 goals in 56 games. In the 1920 season had 19 goals in 66 games. And then the year before that, 27 goals in 66. Like, Van Riemsdyk is going to be a 20-goal scorer for you if he comes in, especially, and help your power play, which the Sharks power play, again, trying to add more bodies, more competent bodies on the Sharks power play, so that way it's not power play 1 and then just a bunch of other guys giving power play 2 some rest time, other guys just kind of going out there. His shooting percentage was a tick down last year at basically 11%, while the previous years he was at like 13%. So actually, sorry, it was 10% last year. Sorry, and the previous years is around 13%. So a tick down there with the shooting percentage. So and he saw his ice time go down. Like, again, Van Riemsdyk feels a very solid kind of second line guy. If you put like Van Riemsdyk, Couture, Barabanov together, and you kind of let those guys run. If Van Riemsdyk has a good season, you can either A, resign him to another short-term deal, B, flip him at the trade deadline and get yourself a nice little asset, maybe like a 3rd or 4th round pick type of situation. And it's not going to cost you much, right? Worth a flyer. You spent basically, right, 2 years at $2.5 million for Oscar Lindblom. I feel like Van Riemsdyk he has a role. He's a shooter, and I think he can help the Sharks score more goals, which is what they need to do, is they need to score more goals. So another potential guy who, again, this not as much offensively, but I feel like he could just kind of help fill some more depth in that middle 6 for the Sharks. And that is one Pius Suter. So Mr. Suter last year, so he'll be 27 going into this season, played 79 games, had 14 goals, 10 assists, 106 shots on goal, average time on ice 1404, Corsi for 46.23%, and then goals for 45.59%. So what I like about Suter is he provides you with some flexibility because he can play center for your team. So, last year, right, you had Lawrence, who really kind of established himself as the 4th line center. Nico Sturm took over the 3rd line center. Logan Couture played every game, and Hertl basically played every game except for the 2 that he got suspended and the 1 where he missed with because of his kid's birth. With Suter, do we really expect Couture and Hertl to basically only miss 3 games next season combined? Not with what we've seen from them previously. So I think a guy like Pius Suter gives you some flexibility. If a Sturm, Couture, a Hertl goes down, he can come in and play center for you, and it's not going to be a train wreck type of situation. And then that doesn't even include Thomas Bordeleau, who gives you another center option. That gives you 6 legitimate centers to kind of work with. Looking at his numbers, he's going to help you defensively, which, again, we know the Sharks struggle on the defensive side, but he is I think he's a very good defensive forward. So he's playing second-line minutes for the Red Wings last year, 70th percentile, 40th percentile offensively. He did a really good job of producing expected goals. Just didn't give real goals situation, but 98th percentile defensively. And I think a forward like him can help out the Sharks' leaky defense a little bit. He's going to play responsibly. And again, I think it gives you some flexibility. And then his potential contract. So he is projected to sign a 2-year deal at $2.237 million. So basically the Luke Cunningham or Oscar Lindblom type of contract for a guy to come in and just give you some more flexibility with your roster, where if you do have some insulation, where if you do have an injury from Couture, Sturm, or Hertl, he can kind of slide into one of those, like into your second or third line. And, Couture, if Hurdle's out, Couture can play 1C. If Couture's out, you could put Suter or Sturm at your 2C, and it's not the end of the world type of situation. So, and again, the contract at $2.2 million or $2.3 million for 2 years. If it works out, great. If not, he gives you plenty of flexibility to be, what the worst is, he's going to be a good defensive, kind of a souped up Matt Nieto type of situation. So with center ability. So before we continue and look at the goalie option that I would in Joonas Korpisalo, and why I think Mike Grier should do whatever he can to try to sign him. Do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you got to do, just come back on Monday. So Monday, like I said, probably going to look at some more potential free agent additions or some more moves Mike Grier can make this offseason. We have plenty of draft coverage continuing with at least 2 draft profiles a week leading up to the draft. So plenty of stuff. So just make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. All right. So the last one is goalie. Sharks need to add a goalie, right? You have Kaapo Kähkönen under contract. He's the only NHL goalie they have under contract this offseason or going into next year. So, of course, James Reimer, free agent. He's not going to be back. They have said he's not going to be back. Other young guys in the system, Georgi Romanov, who's going to be making his, North American debut, probably in the AHL. Magnus Krona, who hasn't played professional hockey yet. And then McAnemy and Strauss-Mann are both RFAs. I expect McAnemy back. I don't expect Strauss-Mann back at this point. So, but Eetu Mäkiniemi hasn't proven that he can make it through an entire season, let alone prove that he is, NHL caliber material right now. So I think they're going to up and sign another guy who can help stabilize the goaltending. And that is why I think it should be Joonas Korpisalo. So Korpisalo, he'll be 29 beginning of next year. He played 39 games last year, .914 save percentage, 287 goals against. Gave up 104 goals. Expected goals against was 116.74. Goals saved above expected, 12.7. The Sharks haven't seen a goal saved above expected like that number in a long time. That was the 11th best in the league last year. Remember, he spent the majority of his season playing for Columbus, and Columbus was terrible. Worse than the Sharks. We can say that. We can look at them and say that you guys are worse than us. So high danger save percentage of 722. Played well for the Kings and, as well. His numbers definitely improved for LA. But even if you look at the split, right? 911 save percentage, 317 goals against average in 28 games for Columbus. 921, 213 save percentage in a shutout in 11 games for the Kings in the regular season. Didn't have the greatest playoffs, weren't the prettiest playoffs. But if you go back to his playoffs in the end in the bubble playoffs, when he was with Columbus, had a 941 save percentage and two shutouts. Korpisalo, and if you look at his fancy numbers here, he made his team look better, especially at even strength. Usually the team in front of him was about, kind of average. He made the team look way better, and that's what the Sharks need. They need a goalie who can make whatever mess is in front of him look better, and I think Korpisalo could be that guy for the Sharks. I know what you're thinking. This is going to cost us a lot of money, isn't it? No. Evolving Hockey has Korpisalo projected at a 2-year deal at 2.616. So a little bit more than what you're paying Kaapo Kähkönen type of situation. I'm very much in the do not sign goalies for more than like 2 or 3 seasons because we've seen goalies turn into pumpkins very quickly, right? Just Martin Jones, even going the Kaapo Kähkönen 11-game sample size to what we saw last year. James Reimer's first season compared to his second season. But I think Korpisalo could be a goalie that you can bet on for the next couple seasons while you still try to figure out what's going on with your E2 Makanemis, your Magnus Kronas, whomever else you're drafting and developing. I would make him my first priority because I feel like that has been the Sharks' bugaboo, right? Has been the goaltending situation. And I know the team in front of him has not been good, but the Sharks, again, their goals saved above expected last year. James Reimer Kaapo Kähkönen was the second worst at minus 24.6. So Kaapo Kähkönen gave up 24 more goals than you'd expect. And James Reimer gave up 11 more goals than you expected. That's a combination. Doing my math here, that's almost 24 plus 11. That's 35 goals more than the Sharks than an average goaltender would have given up. 35 goals. That's basically almost half a goal per game that the Sharks are just giving up type of situation. And the Sharks you guys watched the Sharks. They were very competitive in a lot of games last year. If they could figure out the goaltending, that would go a long way for this team to just be more competent. And I think Korpisalo could be that guy for the Sharks, especially if he played well for Columbus last year. It can't be anywhere. And the Columbus, look at the goal. Look at some of the defensemen. They had a guy named Billy Sweeney or something. Yeah, right. So they were running out just dudes out there that anybody with a warm body that they could play defense. And I know the Sharks defense isn't the greatest out there, but at least like Vlasic looked solid last year. Matt Benny looked good. Like they have some guys who look like NHL caliber defensemen. So if you second year under David Quinn, you fix the goaltending, like you can kind of start to squint and see how things could look a lot better for the Sharks. So if I had to rank them, like I said, Korpisalo would be the number one out of all these guys of who I would my top priority to try to sign would be with Korpisalo. Bertuzzi, again, I think especially if you can get him that 4-year under $6 million range, I think he can be a poor man's Timo Meier at least, and help produce or help kind of provide some goal scoring among the top 6 for the Sharks that they need, especially after Timo Meier left. So, and then the other guys, I feel like they're worthy flyers, right? James van Riemsdyk isn't the sexiest name, but at a contract under $2 million, he could provide some more depth scoring and then potentially be an asset at the trade deadline. And then Pius Suter, I think he gives just the Sharks more flexibility and insulation in case something happens, to Sturm, to Couture, to Hertl. It just allows a little bit more insulation among there where he can slide into center to help out those guys. Or if you want to play him at center and then put Nico Sturm on the wing, like it just gives you a little bit more flexibility with your roster. So that's going to be it for me today. Let me know what you guys think of the signings, if you think potential signings. Evolving Hockey's their contracts are projections are usually pretty good. So that's why I like to use them. So if Korpisalo at under $3 million for 2 years, sign me up. I'm very excited about that. So hopefully Hopefully none of the other GMs have evolving hockey subscriptions. I don't know. Anyway, so be back on Monday. Like I said, probably going to look at some other potential guys. Maybe some Dan Vladar. We'll see if he might be looking at worth trying to acquire from the Flames. Who knows? We'll figure it out. We got plenty of fun draft profiles. If you missed some of the ones we did this week, looked at a bunch of the goalies. Plenty of good stuff. Did a mock draft this week. Plenty of good stuff for you over at Locked On Sharks. So make sure you guys are following along on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike Fryhole. Find the show wherever you get podcasts, and of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Until Monday. Sorry. Bye, friends.